In 2003, the world saw the release of the very first Call of Duty. I'll admit, I never actually played it, and most likely neither did you. But the fact remains, this game completely changed the way we thought war shooters could be. The player stepped into the boots of three different soldiers, taking part in key battles of World War II. Among them, Private Martin from the legendary U.S. 101st Airborne Division, Sergeant Evans from Britain's elite SAS, and Senior Sergeant Voronin of the Red Army. Each campaign had its own atmosphere and arsenal, from the American Thompson to the British Sten and the Soviet PPS-41. A special highlight was the multiplayer, up to 32 players competing at once on maps like Carrington, Dawnville, and Pavlov. These multiplayer arenas were based on story locations, with factions limited to Americans, British, and Germans, each with its own authentic weapons. Game modes mostly included Deathmatch, Team Deathmatch, and of course, the legendary Search and Destroy. For those who don't know, one side plants the bomb, the other defends the objective. There was also the lesser-known Behind Enemy Lines mode, where the goal was to sneak into enemy territory and escape. Maps were cleverly designed with multiple routes and tight choke points, forcing players to work as a team instead of just chasing kills. Critics were impressed, gamers were excited, and no one could have guessed that this series would dominate the genre for many years to come. In 2005 came Call of Duty 2, and this time there's no exaggeration in saying the launch was huge. The game released alongside the Xbox 360, instantly reaching a much wider audience. It refined the World War II formula and showed what the next generation of games should be: detailed graphics, larger-scale battles, and a revolutionary health system. Forget medkits, just take cover and a few seconds later you're back in action. Once again, the campaign was split between three soldiers, but this time the battles felt much bigger. In the British story, playing as Sergeant John Davis, you fought in North Africa, facing tanks and Rommel's Afrika Korps. The Soviet campaign, with Private Vasily Kozlov, took you to Stalingrad, brutal street fighting, clearing buildings, and tense sniper duels. The most spectacular was the American campaign with Corporal Bill Taylor, the D-Day landing, the assault on Pointe du Hoc, and the push through occupied French villages under Sergeant Randall's command. Multiplayer supported up to 64 players on PC and offered classic modes: Team Deathmatch, Capture the Flag, and Search and Destroy. Maps like Tujan, Carrington, and Burgundy quickly became iconic. Victory here came from teamwork, not just personal stats. Console players fell in love with the game. For many, this was their first real next-gen Call of Duty, setting the standard for all WW2 shooters for years ahead. 2005 was the peak of the genre, and every Xbox 360 owner had Call of Duty 2 in their collection. Then in 2006 came Call of Duty 3, and for the first time in the series, doubts appeared. This was the first game not developed by Infinity Ward, but by Treyarch. The difference was noticeable from the very first minutes. While Infinity Ward was busy working on the next big breakthrough, Treyarch was tasked with making another WW2 game that, frankly, no one was really waiting for. The main new feature was 4-player split-screen co-op, fun but not enough to save the game. Yes, you could play the story together on one couch, but everything else felt rushed. The graphics looked outdated even for 2006, the AI was worse than in Call of Duty 2, and the weapons felt weak. The developers tried adding cinematic QTE moments, but they came off forced and broke the pacing. Compared to Call of Duty 2, this entry felt dull, and fans openly said it had lost the charm and innovation that made the first game special. But in 2007, Activision released the first Modern Warfare, and everything changed. This was the turning point that transformed Call of Duty into a global phenomenon. No Nazis, no World War II. Infinity Ward went all in. We're making modern war now. Spy conspiracies, terrorists, the threat of nuclear attack, and a story straight out of a political thriller Tom Clancy would be proud of. You played as two characters, British SAS operative John Soap McTavish and U.S. Marine Paul Jackson. The campaign moved between the Middle East and Russia, following the legendary mustachioed Captain Price through missions that felt like scenes from a Hollywood blockbuster. At the center of the story was the Russian ultranationalist Imran Zakhaev, who sought to restore the glory of the Soviet Union. Your mission was to stop him before he could trigger a global nuclear catastrophe. The narrative was flawless. Memorable allies like Price and Gaz stood out, as did the charismatic antagonist Zakhaev, who kept slipping away from death. The missions became legendary. The AC-130 Death from Above strike, where you literally rained fire from the sky, the sniper operation All Gillied Up set in Chernobyl, and the shocking nuclear explosion scene in Shock and Awe, after which you, barely alive, crawled through the ruins. If you were among those who witnessed it firsthand, you probably still remember that moment vividly. But the real breakthrough came in multiplayer. This is where Call of Duty became truly addictive. The perk system allowed players to choose skills like stopping power, juggernaut, and martyrdom. Kill streaks unleashed UAVs, airstrikes, or deadly attack helicopters. For the first time, custom loadouts appeared, letting you craft the perfect setup for your playstyle. And the Prestige mode forced you to start over just for a new badge and status among players, a brilliant psychological move. Maps became iconic: Crash, Backlot, Crossfire, Shipment, Vacant. Each offered its own pace and combat scenarios. Weapon progression was accompanied by challenges for each model, unlocking camos and that satisfying sound of leveling up. The community lived the game, shouting in voice chats, making YouTube montages, marathon runs to max prestige. It was no longer just entertainment. Modern warfare became a cultural phenomenon, proving that modern war could be just as gripping as historical conflicts, and that a well-designed progression system could keep players hooked for months. Call of Duty was no longer just another shooter. It had become the very benchmark of the genre. For Treyarch, the next installment, World at War, was a chance at redemption. After the failure of Call of Duty 3, the studio decided not to follow the beaten path. We're returning to World War II, but we'll make it as brutal and ruthless as possible. This time, you stepped into the boots of two soldiers fighting in the bloodiest theaters of that war. Private Miller fought with the U.S. Marines against the Japanese in the Pacific, while Private Dmitry Petrenko advanced with the Red Army against the Germans on the Eastern Front. The Pacific battles were insane. Flamethrowers turned enemies into burning silhouettes, grenades tore bodies apart, and Japanese soldiers waited in tree branches or camouflaged pits, setting deadly ambushes. Missions on Palaliu and Okinawa truly captured the horror of the Pacific War. The Soviet campaign was even more intense. The assault on Stalingrad, the push to Berlin, fights on the Silos Heights along Sergeant Reznov, a charismatic hero who instantly won the fans' hearts. The story was unvarnished. You saw enemies burned alive, civilians caught in chaos, and Soviet troops making one last desperate attack on Hitler's bunker. The multiplayer was solid, though not revolutionary. But the final mission hid an Easter egg that later grew into a phenomenon bigger than the series itself. After completing the main story, you unlocked the Nucked on Toten mode. It had 4 players defend a tiny bunker against endless waves of undead Nazis. The developers intended this mechanic as a simple, carefree bonus just for fun. No one could have predicted it would become a genuine gaming phenomenon. Treyarch created something exceptional, spawning such popularity that people bought new Call of Duty titles just for the Zombies mode. Since then, the studio has been trying to replicate that triumph. Modern Warfare 2 was the sequel that completely changed the video game world, and I'm not exaggerating. This game was discussed everywhere, on TV news, in political debates, and it dominated Xbox Live voice chats. After the first game set an insanely high bar, the developers managed to surpass it, and with a spectacular twist. The campaign was absolutely wild. The story threw players into a whirlwind of events. Russian ultranationalists attacking the USA, a traitorous general betraying everyone, and of course, the most controversial airport level in history. Due to its controversy, it was even banned in some countries. But the main theme was betrayal. The conflict between Ghost, Soap, and Price against General Shepard became the sharpest and most dramatic in the series' history. And the final scene, where Price throws a knife into Shepard's eye during the chase in Afghanistan, was a true masterpiece of cinematic flair. But the real madness happened in multiplayer. This was the era when COD's online mode lost all limits. Akimbo 1887 shotguns let you one-shot enemies from a distance like a sniper rifle. Commando Pro allowed stabbing opponents with a knife from 3 meters away. Combining one-man army with the underbarrel grenade launcher gave you infinite grenades. And of course, the UMP-45 submachine gun outpaced most assault rifles in kill speed. It was the most fun, but also the least balanced entry in the series. The maps were iconic: Rust for fast duels, Terminal for search and destroy, High Rise for trick shots. Kill streaks were insanely powerful. 7 kills earned you a Harrier jet, 9 a pave low attack helicopter, and 25 triggered a tactical nuke that instantly ended the match. Some players camped for hours just to get that nuke. Everyone had mixed feelings about this game. In my opinion, it was brilliant. You could leave a match furious after getting killed by an akimbo shotgun from across half the map, but you'd immediately start a new one because the game was insanely addictive. It was the peak of COD's Wild West era before developers began worrying about balance. Sometimes, imperfect games bring the most fun. Black Ops was the surprise game that, in the best sense, blew players' minds. After the non-stop action of Modern Warfare 2, Treyarch took a risk. What if we made a psychological thriller disguised as a shooter? Vietnam, brainwashing, and one of the most unreliable protagonists in gaming history, this campaign didn't fit the usual mold. You played as Alex Mason, or did you? The whole story unfolded through his memories during interrogations, tied to a chair while unknown voices grilled him about the numbers. The player constantly questioned what was real, what were memories, and what was just confusion in his traumatized mind. The plot took us through the Bay of Pigs invasion, the Vietnam War, and a Soviet sleeper agent conspiracy trying to poison America's water supply with Nova 6 gas. It was truly brilliant storytelling, but Treyarch's real breakthrough was multiplayer. They introduced combat training with bots, allowing practice without being disturbed by screaming 12-year-olds. The theater mode let players record, edit, and share their best moments, essentially built-in YouTube. Weapons were balanced, and maps like Nuketown, Firing Range, and Summit instantly became classics. The class creation system was greatly improved, kill streaks were fairer, and gameplay felt much more balanced and skill-focused. No more akimbo shotguns or knife jumps. This was COD multiplayer at its most honest and competitive. And of course, zombies couldn't be forgotten. Players spent months unraveling the story, decoding radio signals, and hunting hidden achievements. Zombie fans dived deep into its mythology, piecing together Element 115, Group 935, and how all maps connected. For many, it was the pinnacle of storytelling in COD, hard to argue with that. This project showed that Call of Duty could be much more than just shooting enemies. The campaign made you doubt everything, multiplayer was perfectly balanced, and zombies became a cultural phenomenon. Treyarch was at the peak of their craft. Modern Warfare 3 was the trilogy's conclusion, simultaneously grand yet somehow unfinished, and that was the biggest frustration. It was supposed to be the epic finale of a legendary series, but Infinity Ward chose a cautious approach instead of going all out. Though the campaign's scale was impressive, a global war erupted, with battles raging in New York, London, Paris, Berlin, and Russia as the planet literally burned. Players once again controlled several heroes: Soap McTavish, Captain Price, Yuri, a former ally of Makarov, and various soldiers from different armies. The story directly continued MW2's ending. Makarov forces invaded Europe, and Price and Soap chased him driven by revenge. Each mission felt like a scene from an expensive action movie, and the global scale created a real sense of apocalypse. But tragedy struck, shocking all fans. Soap didn't die heroically saving the world, but simply from wounds while hiding in Prague. Price tried to save him but failed. For those who'd played as Soap since 2007, it was a real blow. The multiplayer after chaotic but brilliant MW2 felt too safe, and that was the main disappointment. However, it was well made, great maps, balanced weapons, and fixed old problems. They also added a new kill confirmed mode, which many liked. Kill streaks were divided into 3 branches: Assault, Support, and Specialist. Weapon proficiency unlocked new attachments simply by using the guns. Survival mode resembled zombies but with live enemies. Still, fans expected a breakthrough, not just a refined MW2. MW3 felt like a game with limits, good but without revolutionary moves. Black Ops 2 was the futuristic game that hit every target. It proved Call of Duty could evolve beyond Modern Warfare without losing its identity. Set in 2025, Treyarch took a risk by moving the series into the future and nailed it perfectly. The main character was David Mason, son of Alex Mason from the first Black Ops, dealing with his father's legacy and future threats. The story jumped between the 1980s and 2025, blending Cold War vibes with high-tech futures. In the past, you controlled Alex Mason and Frank Woods during the Nicaraguan conflict against Raul Menendez. In the future, David tried to stop the same Menendez who planned a global conflict by hacking American drones. The campaign had multiple endings depending on player choices, but multiplayer became the real hallmark. The revolutionary Pick 10 system let players build weapon classes without fixed slots. Instead, you had 10 points to spend however you wanted. Maps like Nuketown 2025, Raid, Standoff, Hijacked, and Yemen instantly became classics. They also introduced league play, ranked matches with pro rules, where you could climb divisions and compete at a pro level. This game gave a huge boost to tournaments, esports leagues, and streaming.
It was the installment that truly made COD competitive esports, and the Zombies mode here was insane. Transit was a huge map where players moved by bus between zones, shooting hordes of the undead and collecting strange devices. Then DLC maps came out, which hit the mark perfectly. This game is definitely one of the series' peaks. Call of Duty Ghosts, released in 2013, was the experiment quickly forgotten, and maybe for good reason. After Black Ops 2's triumph, Infinity Ward reset the universe. A new story, fresh characters, a different tone. If you looked closely, the campaign was actually quite interesting. The US was hit by the South American Federation. You played as Logan Walker, a member of the elite Ghost Squad, and together with his brother Hesh, tried to push back an enemy who, unlike usual COD scenarios, had the upper hand. Cities lay in ruins, the army was scattered, the situation was critical. The villain, Gabriel Rourke, a former Ghost, was captured, brainwashed, and turned into a weapon against his own. His personal conflict with your father, Elias Walker, added drama. But the real fan favorite was Riley, a German shepherd who outshone many COD heroes. Missions involving him were memorable, and the moment he got injured made players worry more about him than the mission itself. At launch, the game looked impressive, especially on next-gen consoles, but multiplayer disappointed. Maps were oversized. Stonehaven and Siege looked majestic, but turned matches into long runs hunting enemies. Still, there were some good innovations, interactive maps with collapses, floods, and earthquakes. Instead of zombies, there was the extinction mode with aliens, fun but a cheap imitation. New modes like Cranked and Blitz had potential but didn't change the overall impression. Advanced Warfare was the jetpack era that split fans into two camps. After Ghost's failure, Sledgehammer Games went full sci-fi. Exoskeletons, boost jumps, wall running, and Kevin Spacey as a charismatic villain. This was the riskiest move in the series since Modern Warfare, and the result was mixed. The campaign was surprisingly good. You played as Jack Mitchell, a soldier who lost his arm in combat and joined the private military company Atlas led by Jonathan Irons. The story unfolded like a corporate thriller. At first, Irons was your savior, gifting you a high-tech prosthetic and exoskeleton, but soon revealed himself as a ruthless manipulator bent on world domination. Spacey's role was brilliantly executed. This happened before his public scandals, and he brought to the game the same cold charisma he showed in House of Cards. Exoskeletons fundamentally changed the gameplay. Long jumps, aerial dodges, attacks from above, wall running, all made you feel like a superhero. Multiplayer split the community. Some enjoyed the speed and verticality of combat, others longed for the grounded COD experience. Maps like Comeback, Detroit, and Biolab were designed specifically for the new mobility. The weapon system, with its various variants, added interest but also created imbalance. Supply drops with cosmetics and weapons were the series' first serious step into microtransactions and sparked outrage since paid options were sometimes stronger than standard ones. Over time, fans recognized Advanced Warfare was better than its initial reception suggested, a powerful campaign, bold gameplay, and high production quality. But technological innovation didn't replace understanding the audience, and Sledgehammer perhaps excelled in tech but failed to satisfy fan tastes. Black Ops 3 went cyberpunk, trying to outdo Black Ops 2. The result was a game with the most convoluted campaign in COD history, but simultaneously one of the strongest multiplayer and zombie modes. The story centered on a soldier who lost limbs, got cyber implants, and connected to the DNI network. Then came artificial intelligence, simulations, and events inside a dying consciousness. Many ignored the story, turning the game into a four-player co-op action. It was easier together, just blasting robots and not thinking about the plot's maze. Cyber abilities in combat were intriguing, hacking tech, X-ray vision, special attacks. The multiplayer became one of the most balanced in the series. Smooth wall running, fast but controlled fights, a specialist system with unique skills. Pick 10 from Black Ops 2 returned. Maps like Combine, Fringe, Hunted, and Nuketown became hits. Zombies reach new heights with Shadows of Evil, a noir 1940s city with Lovecraftian atmosphere, 4 sinners in purgatory, and tons of secrets. Hollywood actors like Jeff Goldblum and Heather Graham voiced characters, adding grandeur. Infinite Warfare was a space drama many overlooked unjustly. One of the most underrated entries, buried in hate even before release. The protagonist was Captain Nick Reyes, a space marine in Earth's war against Mars. The enemy, Martian SDF, led by Admiral Salen Koch, aimed to destroy Earth and seize solar system resources. Sounds like standard sci-fi, but the presentation and zero-G combat were brilliant. Players could use jetpacks to maneuver among asteroids, fight on spaceship holes, and join large-scale battles in open space. Missions impressed with scale, assaulting an SDF shipyard, infiltrating a lunar station, and the final showdown on a disintegrating ship looked like blockbuster scenes. However, fans condemned the game before launch. The release trailer got a record number of dislikes on YouTube at that time, with comments demanding a return to Earth. After Advanced Warfare and Black Ops 3, players were tired of futurism and jetpacks. The hate was so massive that Infinite Warfare became meme fodder. The community wanted a return to modern or classic conflicts. Selling the game bundled with Modern Warfare Remastered only fueled outrage. Most bought the package for the remaster and never touched the main game. Still, multiplayer was well made, smooth animation, balanced arsenal, and interesting maps. The class system and specialists were thoughtful, with lots of weapon customization. Call of Duty WWI was a kind of apology to fans and returned the series to its roots. It felt like Sledgehammer said sorry for Advanced Warfare and took the safest route, from jetpacks and robots back to the Normandy Mandings. It was a cautious move. Players took the role of Red Daniels, a simple Texan farm boy thrown into the hell of the European front as part of the 1st Infantry Division. The campaign led the squad through key battles of WWI, Normandy Landing, the Ardennes Offensive, Paris Liberation, and the final assault on Germany. The story was solid but composed of classic scenes familiar from WWI films. The Holocaust theme was handled respectfully but felt obligatory, and the overall narrative was predictable. Multiplayer returned to old-school COD with very simple mechanics. Class creation was replaced by a division system: infantry, airborne, armored, sniper marksman, and expeditionary corps. Each had unique abilities and weapons. It was simpler than previous games, refreshing but limiting. The new war mode was a real breakthrough, large team battles with sequential objectives, like mini-campaigns. It could have been a marketing highlight. The headquarters served as a social hub where players interacted, unlocked loot boxes, tested weapons, and even held 1v1 duels. Nazi zombies returned. The final Reich map offered classic zombie experience, random weapon boxes, pack-a-punch, and wonder weapons assembled from parts. However, something was missing. The campaign was competent but lacked spark, multiplayer stable but without bold innovations, and zombies felt like an afterthought. Developers clearly avoided risks after backlash from previous 3 games. Black Ops 4 went the opposite way, maybe the boldest decision in COD history. Activision simply said, no campaign, no story sequences, cutscenes, or narratives. Rumor was the campaign was scrapped late. Some said they tried, but it didn't work, so all focus shifted to multiplayer. Fans' reaction was immediate and harsh. Many felt abandoned, especially after WWI's decent campaign. Paying full price for a game without story felt like a scam. Marketing tried to present it as the biggest multiplayer in series history, but the sting remained. Still, the gameplay was brilliant, perhaps the best in years. Specialists from Black Ops 3 returned, fully reimagined and balanced. Each felt powerful and unique, but without breaking balance. Maps were designed around their abilities. Weapon modification system deepened and strongly affected tactics. The Blackout mode surprised everyone, a battle royale that felt truly Call of Duty, not a PUBG copy. The map combined iconic Black Ops locations, Nuketown, Raid, Firing Range, and others. It had 100 players, vehicles, and a shrinking zone, but the pace remained classic COD. It felt like the series' answer to Fortnite and PUBG, with signature shooting and speed. Weapon progression carried over from multiplayer, so even in Battle Royale, familiar progression was felt. The zombie mode launched with 4 maps, an all-time series record. Later, Black Ops 4 came to be called the game ahead of its time. Focus on multiplayer, live services, and Battle Royale became standard in future entries.
Yet at the time, it was a risky move that attracted and repelled many. Modern Warfare 2019 was a soft reboot that returned the franchise to the top. It wasn't just a name refresh, the game redefined what COD could be. The campaign showed the brutal reality of modern conflicts with no sugarcoating. Captain Price returned, familiar but now older, hardened, and burdened by decades of covert ops. Farah Karim, leader of the resistance in fictional Urzikstan, fighting against Russian occupation and chemical attacks. Alex, a CIA operative torn between duty and moral doubts. The mission Clean House instantly became iconic, playing as Price, clearing a London house hiding terrorists. But the real breakthrough was multiplayer, which felt fresh for the first time in years. Crossplay united players on PlayStation, Xbox, and PC, something unthinkable just a few years before. The Gunsmith system gave unprecedented weapon customization freedom, up to 5 attachments on the barrel and dozens of combinations capable of turning an assault rifle into a sniper or SMG. Each upgrade had pros and cons. Longer range reduced mobility, higher damage increased recoil. It was the deepest weapon customization in COD history. Visually, the game impressed, realistic lighting, detailed characters, and stunning locations. Post-release support was exemplary. Free maps, weapons, regular updates, and seasonal content kept interest alive for months. Battle Pass worked fairly and cosmetics didn't affect balance. Modern Warfare brought back old fans, attracted new ones, and reminded everyone why they once loved the series. By 2020, Warzone, a free-to-play battle royale for 150 players, exploded onto the internet, becoming a genuine cultural phenomenon. You would drop into Verdansk, a massive map that combined iconic locations from past Modern Warfare titles. The Gulag idea was a true breakthrough. Instead of sitting out as a spectator after death, you got a chance to return by defeating another eliminated player. Loadout drops allowed you to bring your own weapon kits rather than scavenging random gear. The in-game economy added a new layer of strategy to matches. You could buy back teammates, purchase kill streaks, or get intel on upcoming zone closures. This boosted the series' popularity to unprecedented levels. Millions of new players joined. What started as a side mode quickly became the main focus. Black Ops Cold War unexpectedly bridged the gap between old and new entries, and it worked surprisingly well. Set in the 80s, it combined the original Black Ops with its sequel. The story featured Ronald Reagan, spy intrigues, and the tense atmosphere of Cold War paranoia executed at a high level. Multiple endings, impactful choices, and an unpredictable twist shocked everyone. The ability to create your own character and make decisions that changed the story's course added depth. The multiplayer preserved the classic COD drive but with modern polish. The Zombies mode returned to the round-based survival format with maps like Die Machine and Firebase Z. It launched alongside the continuing success of Modern Warfare, but managed to stand out on its own. Vanguard marked another return to WW2, but was a misstep. The campaign followed 4 soldiers from different theaters of war, told through flashbacks during captivity by a Nazi criminal dreaming of a Fourth Reich. The concept sounded good, but execution was chaotic, and the characters felt bland. Multiplayer introduced destructible environments and a combat-paced system, letting players choose between tactical, assault, or blitz match tempos. Champion Hill, a tournament-style mode, was an unexpected addition. The biggest failure was Zombies. Round-based survival disappeared, replaced by objective-driven gameplay resembling a standard co-op shooter. Most players either ignored the mode, quickly forgot it, or openly criticized it. Not a total flop, but certainly not a success, just another weak chapter in a series losing momentum. Modern Warfare 2 2022 tried to recapture the spirit of 2009. The campaign focused on Task Force 141, Captain Price, Soap McTavish, Ghost, and newcomer Alejandro Vargas tracking Iranian Major Hassan Ziani and Mexican cartel leader El Sueno. The story took players from Amsterdam to Mexico and Chicago, featuring spectacular missions from prison breaks to cartel raids and a finale in a Chicago skyscraper. Ghost finally got more depth, Soap matured, dialogues felt lively, but the campaign was short and the story condensed. Multiplayer remained strong, refined 2019 mechanics, new scenic maps, and the return of classic modes. Gunsmith 2.0 expanded customization even further, and the new perk system grouped perks into sets. Visually and audibly, it was top tier, though some felt it lacked soul.
It was a solid but cautious sequel, liked by many but not beloved. A good modern warfare but not outstanding. Warzone 2.0 was a reboot no one asked for. Instead of updating the original, developers scrapped it and launched Al Mazrah, a new map inspired by the Middle East. The Gulag was reworked into a 2v2 format with random teammates, a good idea but often frustrating. Proxy chat let players hear opponents, sometimes creating funny or eerie moments. Zones split into parts, then merged, and forts guarding valuable loot were protected by AI enemies. The DMZ mode turned Warzone into a PvPvE shooter with contracts and extractions, but the changes divided fans. Some liked it, others missed the original simplicity. The UI was complex, technically impressive but felt like fixing what wasn't broken. Online was unstable, reviews mixed, and the project struggled to find its identity. Modern Warfare 3 2023 felt like an expensive DLC, a short campaign, nostalgic maps, and an unwanted open-world zombie mode. The story was fast, about 4 hours of gameplay filled with remasters. Players mostly disappointed, critics gave average scores, but sales held strong thanks to the brand. Black Ops 6 2024, set during the Gulf War, exemplified the gap between critics and players. The campaign followed a CIA team led by Frank Woods and Russell Adler uncovering betrayal inside the agency. You played as Case, a new operative with a secret past. The story returned to classic mind games with twists, unreliable narrators, and mythological ties. Hubs allowed gear customization, team chats, and mission order selection. The campaign was praised for returning to the original Black Ops style. Multiplayer brought back Pick 10, zombies returned to round-based survival with 2 starting maps, a weapon box, and Pack-a-Punch. But the community was less welcoming. Steam ratings dropped to 64% positive, and player activity plummeted by a record 47%, the fastest decline in Call of Duty history.